Asians have kept themselves apart as a closed community and have refused to integrate with Ugandan Africans.
Idi Amin was a very calculating, cunning and very devious person, but he had the habit and the knack of disarming his enemies until he had the opportunity of getting rid of them, perhaps physically. So he was a very clever man. He was intelligent, he was uneducated, he was brutal, he was ruthless, but he was effective in what he did for himself and his cronies.
I have very tragic memories of Idi Amin because I can now reflect back on the bodies that I saw hanging from trees, the bodies, dead bodies in the rivers and the red water. And so don't have very fond memories of Idi Amin and what he did to the country. I think he just destroyed what is a beautiful, beautiful country. And to me, Uganda and especially Kampala is like heaven on earth. And Idi Amin managed to destroy that.
1972, it's 40 years ago now, so some of the older members of that community will sadly no longer be with us, and it's important to capture stories from people whilst the memories are still fresh. It's very important to do that, because often we find that people don't necessarily pass on the stories to the next generation. Sometimes they're reluctant to speak to the children about it. So it's important to create an archive to collect memories from people, their experience of their life in Uganda, the expulsion, settling in Leicester, and as I say, how they see themselves as well in terms of identity.
I was born in Sialkot, Pakistan, but I emigrated to Uganda when I was an infant with my parents. So I grew up in that country. I was educated in that country up to secondary level, and having done my secondary level, I then went to Pakistan, to Punjab University, where I graduated in sciences, and then I returned to Uganda. So most of my life, until our departure in 1972, was spent in Uganda, and I was quite a prominent person. I occupied high civic positions. I was a leader of the Asian community. I was a leader of the Muslim community. I knew the presidents and the prime ministers and ministers. Many of them were my friends, and I worked with them at different levels. So I had quite an enjoyable and full life in Uganda until things began to go wrong in terms of security and safety for our people and deprivation of trade opportunities for our community. Then things began to go from bad to worse towards the end. And the last few years in the country were years of great worry, uncertainty, unpredictability, and really one did not know where to turn, because wherever you turned, there was darkness. The British government was not willing to take in the Asians. India, of course, rejected the Asian community, as did Pakistan. And therefore, the Asian community in Uganda at the time, before the expulsion, were in a real dilemma. They were in a real bind. They did not want to live in the country, but they could not emigrate quickly enough.
I was born and brought up in Uganda. I went through a very, very happy childhood there and secondary school. Lived in a very secure community where the land was so fertile and the community was such a community that I really consider it my blessing to have been brought up in such an environment.